It is a cold morning, the kind where the windows have a thin skin of frost and your breath hangs in the air inside the car before the heater catches up. You climb into your Camry or your Corolla and you turn the key. The engine catches on the first try the way it always does because it is a good engine. You let it run for maybe 20 seconds while you brush the frost off the mirror, and then you back out of the driveway. 6 minutes later, you are pulling into the parking lot at work. You shut it off. You go inside. You do not think about it again all day. And here's the thing I want you to sit with for a second. In those 6 minutes, you did not do anything wrong. You did not redline it. You did not skip an oil change. You did not buy cheap gas. You did everything a careful person does. And yet, if that 6-minute drive is the only kind of driving that engine ever sees, you just did the single most common thing that quietly kills modern engines. Not in a dramatic way. Not today. But slowly, a little at a time, in a way you will not notice until it is expensive. I want to tell you about a habit. It costs nothing. It takes about half an hour, once a month, and it is the closest thing I know to the reason Japanese engines have a reputation for running until the body rusts off around them. It is not magic. It is not an additive. And I am going to be honest with you the whole way down, including the part where I tell you exactly what this will not fix, because I would rather you trust me than buy me. My name is Kenji. I have spent most of my working life with my hands inside engines, a lot of them Japanese, and the longer I do this, the more I am convinced that the engines that last are not the ones that got the fancy treatment. They are the ones that got the consistent treatment. There is a discipline behind a high mileage engine, and most of that discipline is boring and quiet and free. The dealer is not going to call you up and teach it to you because there is no part to sell at the end of it. So I will. The habit is two things linked together, done once a month. The first is that you pull the dipstick and you actually look at your oil, the level, and the condition. The second is that you take the car out for one good drive, 20 to 30 minutes, long enough to get the engine all the way up to operating temperature. A real drive. Highway speed, steady, not stop and go. That is the whole thing. Check the oil, then run it hot. Once a month. We are going to go deep on both, and I am going to show you exactly how. But first, I want you to understand why it works, because once you understand the why, you will never skip it. Before I go further, I want to point you to one thing, and then I am going to leave it alone. The people who first taught me this stuff kept it in their heads and in greasy notebooks. I have been putting all of it in one place. The full fluid calendar, the real intervals, what the old mechanics actually watched for. The stuff that does not fit in one video. It lives at jdmenginevault.vercel.app. The link is in the description. That is the long version. I will not bring it up again. So let us talk about why a 6-minute drive is the problem. Because this is the part nobody explains, and it is the whole game. When fuel burns inside your engine, it does not burn perfectly. A small amount of raw, unburned fuel always slips past the rings and ends up down in the crankcase, mixing into your oil. That is normal. Every engine does it. At the same time, combustion produces water. Water vapor, a lot of it, and some of that vapor finds its way down into the oil too, especially when everything is cold. So every time you start a cold engine, you are adding two things to your oil that do not belong there. Raw fuel and water. Now here is the rescue mechanism the engineers built in. When the engine gets fully hot and stays hot for a while, that heat boils the water and the light fuel right back out of the oil. It evaporates, gets pulled out through the crankcase ventilation, and your oil goes back to being clean oil. The system cleans itself, but only if it gets hot enough, for long enough. A 6-minute drive never gets there. The engine is barely warm when you shut it off, the water never boils out, the fuel never cooks off, so it sits, and then tomorrow you do it again, and you add a little more water and a little more fuel, and none of yesterday's ever left. It accumulates. And I want to be fair here, because this is where a lot of people get the wrong idea and start panicking about a single short trip. One short drive is nothing. Engines are tough, and they are built with margin. The problem is never one cold start. The problem is a pattern. Weeks and months where every drive is short, every drive is cold, and the engine never once gets the long hot run it needs to clean itself out. That is the situation most modern commuters are actually in without realizing it. Drive to work, drive home, drive to the store, all of it under 10 minutes, all of it cold, day after day after day. Each trip is harmless. The pattern is what does the damage. And the reason I am making such a point of it is that this is the most common driving pattern there is, and almost nobody knows it is slowly working against them. And accumulated water and fuel in your oil is not a small thing. The water turns the oil acidic. Acidic oil is corrosive, and it begins to quietly etch and rust the precision steel surfaces inside your engine. The bearings, the cam lobes, the places where tolerances are measured in fractions of a hair. The fuel thins the oil out, which means the oil film, that microscopically thin layer that is the only thing keeping metal from touching metal, gets weaker. Thinner film means more wear every single mile. And the whole soup, the water and the fuel and the byproducts, starts to cook into sludge, that dark, thick, tar-like gunk that clogs the tiny oil passages, and the pickup screen until parts of the engine simply stop getting oil at all. This is what actually kills most modern engines that die before their time. Not a dramatic failure. A slow poisoning of the oil from short trips that the owner never saw coming because the car always started and always drove fine right up until it did not. And it is worse now than it used to be because a lot of newer engines are direct injection, and direct injection tends to push a little more raw fuel past the rings into the oil. So the exact engines in a lot of driveways today are the ones most sensitive to never being run hot. Now you can see why the monthly hot drive matters. It is not about the miles. It is about giving the engine one real chance every month to cook itself clean, to boil out the water, evaporate the fuel, get the oil thin and flowing and push through every passage, and to let the seals warm up and flex and stay supple instead of drying out. 30 minutes at temperature undoes a month of short trips. It is the reset button the engine was designed to have that most people never press. So let me show you how to actually do it. The drive first, because it is the simplest. Once a month, you take the car out and you drive it for at least 20 minutes. And 30 is better, in a way that keeps the engine working at a steady, moderate load. The best version of this is a highway drive. Get on the freeway, settle into a steady speed, and just let it run. What you are avoiding is stop and go. Crawling through town in traffic keeps the engine cool and loaded and does not do the job. You want sustained, easy effort, the engine spinning steadily, the oil and coolant fully circulating. How do you know it is actually at temperature? Watch your temperature gauge if you have one. It should climb up to the middle and settle there, and then you want to keep driving for a good while after it settles, because the coolant comes up to temperature long before the oil does. The oil is the thing you are trying to heat, and it lags behind. So when the gauge hits normal, the job is not done. That is when the clock really starts. Give it another 15, 20 minutes after that. If your car only has a temperature warning light and no gauge, then just go by time and by feel. Once the heater is blowing genuinely hot and you have been at highway speed for a solid 20 minutes, the engine is hot and happy and doing exactly what it needs to do. A couple of small things that make the drive better if you want to do it right. Don't log the engine and don't baby it to death. Moderate load is the goal, not feather-like coasting. Let the car work a little. And there is no need to rev it hard or push it. You are not trying to blow anything out. You are just trying to get everything hot and circulating. Gentle, steady, sustained. If it is cold outside, that drive matters even more, because cold weather is when the most water and fuel end up in your oil, and it is exactly when people are least likely to take a long drive. Winter is when short trips do the most harm. So in the cold months, do not skip it. That is the month it counts the most. That is the whole drive. No special route. You can run an errand, visit someone, take the long way home from somewhere you were going anyway. The only rule is long enough, hot enough, steady enough. Once a month. Now the dipstick, because this is where you catch problems while they are still cheap. Park on level ground. If you have just been driving, let it sit a few minutes so the oil drains back down into the pan. Or do it cold first thing in the morning. Just be consistent. Check it the same way every time so your readings mean something. Pull the dipstick out. Wipe it clean on a rag. Push it all the way back in, seat it fully, then pull it out again and look. That first pull is unreliable because oil splashes up the stick. The second pull gives you the true level. You are looking at two things, level and condition. Level is simple. There are two marks or a cross-hatched area near the tip. Your oil should be at or near the top mark. If it is sitting down at the bottom mark or below it, you are low. And that matters more than people think. Being a quart low is not a catastrophe in the moment, but it is a message. A healthy engine in good condition should not drop noticeably between oil changes. If yours did, something is going on, and you just caught it early, which is the entire point. Condition is where you learn to read the engine like a doctor reads a chart. Look at the color and the feel. Good, healthy oil is translucent, somewhere from honey amber to light brown, and it should look smooth. Yes, it darkens as it does its job. Dark alone is not an emergency. What you are watching for is the bad stuff. Rub a little between your thumb and finger. It should feel slick and smooth. If it feels gritty, that is metal and dirt, and that is a warning. Now smell it. This one surprises people. If the oil smells sharp, like gasoline, that is fuel dilution. Exactly the thing we have been talking about. And a strong sign this engine needs that hot drive badly, or needs a look. And the worst sign of all, if you see a milky, creamy coffee with too much cream look or foam on the dipstick, that is water and coolant in the oil. And that one you do not ignore. That can mean a real problem, and you want a mechanic to look before you drive much further. Here is why this 30-second look is worth so much. The two things that quietly destroy a healthy engine between oil changes are consumption, the engine is slowly burning or using oil, so the level falls, and a leak, oil escaping somewhere. Both are completely manageable when you catch them at a quart low. You top it up, you keep an eye on it, you get the leak looked at on your schedule. But both are catastrophic if you never look, because the failure mode is the same. The level falls and falls, you never check, and one day the engine runs low enough that the oil film fails and metal meets metal at speed. That is a destroyed engine, and it almost always started as a slow drip or a slow burn that a monthly dipstick would have caught months earlier, while it was still a $20 problem instead of a $4,000 one. That is the habit. Check the oil, run it hot once a month. It is all in the description if you want the deeper version. Now, I promised you honesty the whole way down, so here is the part the headline does not put in big letters. This habit is not a miracle, and I need you to hear me clearly on that, because I do not want you walking away believing something that will let you down. This is preventive discipline. It keeps a healthy engine healthy. It will not save an engine that is already damaged. If your engine is already burning oil hard, already full of sludge, already worn out, a monthly hot drive is not going to reverse that. You cannot unrust a bearing or unsludge a clogged passage with a nice freeway run. What this habit does is keep a good engine from ever getting to that point. It is the difference between brushing your teeth and getting a root canal. The brushing is cheap and boring, and it works, but only if you start before the damage, not after. And one more thing, the most important caveat of all, this monthly check does not replace your actual oil changes. It is in addition to them, not instead of them. You still change your oil on schedule, and you use the exact oil weight your specific engine calls for, and you change it at the exact interval your specific engine calls for. Not what your neighbor uses, not what the guy at the counter wants to upsell you, not a number you half remember. Open your owner's manual, find the grade and the interval for your engine, and follow that. Every engine is a little different, and the people who designed yours wrote down what it wants. The habit I have given you watches the oil between those changes. It does not replace them. That honesty, by the way, is the whole Japanese maintenance idea in one sentence. The reputation those engines have for lasting forever was never about a magic part or a secret additive. It was about consistency. Somebody checked, somebody ran it right, somebody followed the spec instead of guessing. Discipline repeated quietly for years. That is the secret, and the reason nobody sells it to you is that there is nothing to sell. It is just a habit. So here is what to do this week. Pick a day, this weekend, maybe. Pull the dipstick when the car has been sitting, and really look, level, color, feel, smell. Just learn what your own oil looks like when it is healthy, so you will recognize the day it is not. Then take the car out and give it one good long hot drive. 20-30 minutes, highway. Steady, and then put a reminder in your phone to do both again in a month. That is it. You have just started the single cheapest thing you can do to keep an engine alive. The truth is, the people who get 200,000-300,000 miles out of a car are almost never doing anything exotic. They are just the ones who keep doing the small boring thing long after everyone else got bored. Discipline is quiet. It does not feel like much in the moment. It just shows up years later as an engine that still runs. So let me ask you, because I genuinely want to know, what is the highest mileage you have ever put on a car? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and the number some of you are going to post are going to be the reason somebody else keeps their car 10 years longer. Tell me the car, tell me the miles. And next week, I want to talk about the one fluid almost everybody forgets entirely. The one that has no light, no warning, no reminder on your dash. And what happens to your transmission when nobody ever checks it. I will see you then. Take care of the small things, and they will take care of you.